Yo, what is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of After the Buzzer. Pretty excited to talk about this one, even though the games are kind of blowouts. I have a lot to say. I feel like we mentioned there were far too many people on the timeline saying, "Oh wow, the playoffs are so great," and me included. And the basketball gods decided, "Okay, we're gonna have two blowouts back to back. Here you go." So two pretty big blowout games. I mean, like Nuggets Blazers was a little bit close for part of the game, and the Blazers kept making these small runs and would kind of cut into it, even though the Nuggets pushed right back. So there was at least a little bit of back and forth. There was a little bit of intrigue, but I think the first game I want to talk about is Bucks Heat, and this game was an absolute blowout. It was not even close. From the first quarter, the Bucks put up 46 points in the first quarter, 14 of those coming from Bryn Forbes, who had a monster game. Bryn Forbes just went out there and decided to become Steph Curry. Who knows? Steph Curry might have even had a Bryn Forbes jersey on the way that he was playing, sinking the most ridiculous threes. Every three he shot, it felt like so good off the hands. It looked like it was going in. It sunk. They were some of the cleanest threes I've ever seen. It was impressive, and it kind of speaks to how much better this Bucks team is. I've said this in the past, but this Bucks team feels better than last year's team. Even though they didn't have quite the regular season success, this team feels more built for the playoffs, and that's what we've seen through the first two games. In the first game, we saw a slow, grinded out game, defensive, hard-nosed battle, and the Bucks came out on top. It took them all the way until the end. The Heat had a chance to try and hit a game winner. They didn't end up doing so, and the Bucks managed to grind out the win. And then this one, we had what was going to look like a potential shootout with the way the Bucks were shooting, and they just kept it going. They can win in multiple ways. I felt like last year's Bucks team, if they didn't get off to a hot start, they kind of fell apart a little bit. If they faced too much adversity, they kind of fell apart. And you have to wonder, did last year's Heat Bucks series play a big part in this growth? Not only right now, because in this series, I'm sure they want to beat the Heat. They want to beat the Heat bad. And the Heat almost seemed complacent, like they were cool with winning last year's series, and now they don't care. I don't know. There was this podcast or something like that I saw. Someone put on my timeline. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Dewani, who's a Sixers fan, so shout out to her. But someone put this podcast on my timeline where someone was talking about the Heat, and they mentioned how the Heat threw the end, like the last game of the season, so they could face the Bucks. They wanted the Bucks in the first round. And I know the Heat did kind of stick it to the Bucks last year, but this is a different Bucks team. This Heat team is worse, and this Bucks team is better than what the last teams were that happened in this playoff series. So, going up against the Bucks over like a Hawks or a Knicks is a terrible decision. And I really hope that's not true, because that would look terrible on the Heat, throwing a game to face a tougher opponent because you think you can beat them. Just win the game. Just win a game and go for the most favorable matchup possible, which would be playing in that 4-5 game. The Heat don't look good. The Heat look awful in this series. The first game, Jimmy couldn't score, Bam couldn't score, and while they were able to play defense, it just wasn't quite enough at the end. And if they're in these like kind of tough, grinded out games, the Heat can play that style. But if the Bucks start hitting some shots, the Heat just can't keep up. They don't have the offense. They miss a guy like Jay Crowder. They miss the production that they were getting from a guy like Tyler Hero in last year's series. They missed this production from guys. Trevor Ariza had 0 points in 19 minutes. His highlight of the game was doing a push-up on someone's chest, which is not cool. And that's not a good way to get yourself up off the ground at all. The Heat just seemed to the game was over by the end of the first quarter, and at the half it was definitely over. And so in the third quarter, the Heat just kind of started doing some stuff that was not like Heat level. Like they didn't look like the Heat of last year. Last year's Heat team felt like a team that knew they belonged, and that they said, hey, we think we're the best team in the entire NBA, not even the East. We think we're the best team in the NBA, and so we're going to come out and play like it every single night. They had like a mentality of, we are the best team and we're going to win. This season's team feels like they have that underdog mentality of, we need to get scrappy, we need to get in people's faces, potentially hurt people, or just be physical. They don't have to do that. They can win this series the way that they won last year's series, but they at the same time they lack the personnel. Trevor Ariza, decent pickup getting for a second round pick. Not Jay Crowder. They missed Jay Crowder badly on this team. Jay Crowder was a good shooter, and he could switch in this defense like the Heat need him to. Also, Kendrick Nunn, he just can't play in the playoffs, it seems like. Last season, they started Goran Dragic over Kendrick Nunn as soon as they got to the playoffs. And that was a great decision, because Goran Dragic had an incredible playoff run. Kendrick Nunn looks lost out there. He had 1 assist and 9 points in 25 minutes of play. Given this game was over super early, but he did not do anything to help the Bucks get past, or help the Heat get past that massive Bucks run in the first quarter. He's just not doing it. He's not distributing. He's not slowing the game down the way that a playoff point guard sometimes needs to. Dragic should be out there starting. And Dwayne Dedmon had a great game, 19, 9, and 2. Great game from Dwayne Dedmon. They might want to consider starting him. They might want to consider starting Bam Adebayo and Dwayne Dedmon next to each other, because Trevor Ariza wasn't doing anything tonight, so they might as well try something different. Same with Kendrick Nunn. Jimmy Butler only had 10, 2, and 4. He's a team worst in terms of plus minus in this series. He's shooting like 25% from the field through the first 2 games of the series. It feels like the Bucks have them figured out. I was worried in that first quarter of the Bucks Heat game that the Bucks were in trouble again. I'm not rooting for one team in particular in this series, but I want to see a good series, and the Bucks like Duncan Robinson hit his first 3 threes because Brook Lopez was just completely playing off. And he's still kind of done that. He's still kind of sagged off and not helped on the screen, but the Heat cannot make them pay. No one is hitting their shots. Last season, it was Tyler Hero hitting his threes. Duncan Robinson, of course, hits his threes, but he only had 10 points tonight. Goran Dragic was hitting his shots. Jay Crowder could hit shots. Jimmy Butler even hit a 3 like occasionally, but more so, he was stepping in and taking that mid-range if Brook Lopez sagged out of that zone. And instead now, they're bricking threes. They're not playing well into their offense. Jimmy Butler's shooting way too many threes, especially in that first game. It's just, they're not playing like the team that they are. They're trying to be someone else. And it really feels like this Heat team has lost all of its identity that they established last season. Last season they established, we can kill you from 3, and we're a tough team that we think we're the best. And now it just feels like they don't have that mentality. I'm sure they still do. It's the Miami Heat, and it's Jimmy Butler. These are super competitive guys. But I don't know. This Heat team just doesn't feel the same. And I've said this all season. I picked the Bucks in 6, but right now, the way that this series is going, the Bucks are going to sweep the Heat. Unless the Heat do something drastic. And I don't know what they can do. Because the Bucks keep making adjustments. And the Heat just don't have the personnel to adjust the way that they need to. They need to go back to what they were doing last year. And they can't do that. They don't have the personnel to do it. And even with the personnel, like Tyler Hero, a guy who was really good in that Bucks series last year, he's not showing up. He's not playing the way that they need him to win these games the way that they won last year. And so I don't see any way. That was part of the reason why I picked the Bucks. I don't see any way the Heat come back and win this series. If they do, clip this, show it to whoever you want. I really cannot see the Heat coming back and winning this series. It would take a monster effort from them. And, they're the reigning Eastern Conference champions. They could do it, but I would be stunned if they came back because they just seem defeated. This team does not seem to really care that much at all. It just doesn't feel the same. It's not the same Heat team. It's not. And I don't know what the solution is. In terms of the Bucks, they just played incredible basketball today. They were getting good looks. They were getting whatever they wanted. Jrue Holiday, 11, 7, and 15 assists. Jrue Holiday is miles better than what they got from Eric Bledsoe last season. Jrue Holiday is exactly what this team needed. A better facilitator and a better perimeter defender. That's exactly what they needed. Because Eric Bledsoe did both of those things, all right, but Jrue Holiday is elite at guarding the perimeter, and he's a pretty good playmaker. He can make things happen, and in the playoffs, you need a guy to slow down the game, make plays for people, because in the playoffs, you can't consistently be taking tough shots because you're going to keep going at this team over and over and over, and eventually those tough shots aren't always going to fall. I talked about that in the other day when talking about Julius Randle, who in that first game against the Hawks took nothing but tough shots, and that's what he's been doing all season. But in the playoffs, you have to be able to get easy looks every now and again. And today, the Bucks were getting easy looks. Giannis, 31, 13, 6. They used Giannis more this game as a big man. That is what they needed to do all this time. I've been tweeting for so long, use Giannis as a center. Play Giannis like he's a center. That's what he can do. He can sometimes pop out and shoot a 3. He can sometimes hit that mid-range, but Giannis is most dominant when he's attacking the basket and making opponents pay because they cannot keep up with him, and his physicality and his length and his strength, they just can't keep up with him. He's Giannis. He's really talented and he's really strong and physically gifted. And so, to see in this game, someone said this, and I'm going to quote them because I think it was a good analogy. I don't remember who it was, so I apologize. Someone said that the Bucks almost in this game used Chris Middleton and Giannis like they were Shaq and Kobe. Given they're not Shaq and Kobe at all, Chris Middleton is not Kobe, but he's a good shot maker, and he can do what he needs to do. He can get to his spot in the mid-range. He can hit the 3. He can do what you need him to do. And if he and Giannis play like that, that's a great way to play them. That's a great way to think about this team. You have a dominant low post presence, and you have a great playmaker in Jrue Holiday and a good shot maker in Chris Middleton. This is the way this team should be, and this is the way that they wanted the team to be last year. Eric Bledsoe just was not quite that, and their role players this season are better. Bobby Portis has been really effective off the bench for them. PJ Tucker, even though he doesn't score much, has played great defense. There was a video from last game, and he did it more this game, where he just frustrated Jimmy Butler. And Jimmy Butler's not an easy guy to stop offensively. We saw that all last playoffs, and not an easy guy to frustrate. And PJ Tucker's been doing that. PJ Tucker has been doing so much well in this series. Jordan Nwora, Elijah Bryant, and Mamadi Diakite, shout out UVA legend Mamadi Diakite, they played in this game, in a playoff game, in a series that a lot of people, including myself, was thought to be a hard-fought, really tough playoff series. But like I said, the Heat have not shown up. They've got to do something drastic. I don't know what the solution is. Like I said, they dominated the Bucks last season because they played a play style that they knew and that they had down, and it feels like the Heat have moved away from that style, and it's just not good enough to beat the Bucks, who are a more talented team. They just are. Giannis is the best player on the court every single night, and he's going to be, because it's Giannis. It's a 2-time MVP, a 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, or reigning Defensive Player of the Year. That's my thought in this game. It was a rant because I'm disappointed the way the Heat have played. I really thought this was going to be a tough series. I thought it was going to be 6 games, and if what I've seen so far continues, it's a sweep. And that would be disappointing for the way that this series was supposed to go. So, those are my thoughts on that. Moving into Blazers Nuggets, I'm going to rip Terry Stotts in this section of the video. This is what I want to talk about. I want to talk about today's game showed how much coaching, and I'm a guy who preaches about coaching. Coaching really matters in the NBA specifically. Like in all of basketball it does, in other sports it does, but when I watch NBA basketball, it shows how much coaching matters. For example, we see a team like the Atlanta Hawks got rid of Lloyd Pierce halfway through the season and became a really, really good team when they picked up Nate McMillan. The Sixers from last season had Brett Brown, got swept, and we're just all around disappointed, given they did have some personnel changes, but also just like out of timeout plays, late game situations, knowing what to do in those situations has improved drastically from when they had Brett Brown last season to when they've had Doc Rivers this year. You can say what you want about the 3-1 lead thing, but he's been much better than Brett Brown was last season. The Blazers have needed to fire Terry Stotts for a long time. It's been coming, and I think it's coming this offseason, especially the way that he's been coaching so far in this series. I think it's coming. Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, give him credit as well. He had a good game tonight, and he's had some great playoff runs in the past for them. Those two have been bailing Terry Stotts out for a long time, and it's not going to work at this point. If Terry Stotts, I guess it might work to win this one series, but I think people are starting to see through it. Those are two really talented players. But in the first half, first of all, I guess I'll talk about Damian Lillard, who was incredible in this game, had 8 threes, which tied the playoff record for 3.5 in that first half of the game, 42 points, 4 rebounds, 10 assists. But he had 8 threes at the half, and he got 1 more the rest of the game. Because in the first half, he was being guarded by guards. In the second half, Michael Malone put Aaron Gordon on Dame. And looking at that, you might think, wow, he's crazy. It was so effective. And this is part of why I loved the Aaron Gordon pickup for the Nuggets. Because Aaron Gordon is a versatile defender, and he takes the pressure off some of those other guys. It took all the pressure off of the rest of the Nuggets. If he was stopping Dame, there was no chance this Portland team would come back. Dame had to drop 50, 60 points for the Blazers to win this game, and even then it was going to be tough unless some of the other guys stepped up. And they didn't. No one stepped up in this game other than like CJ McCollum, 21-6-2, and he was pretty efficient. He had a really testy flagrant foul. The refs were bad in this game. The refs were just bad all around. There were way too many whistles called, way too many like ticky-tacky fouls that just really did not need calling. Let the guys play. It's the playoffs. I don't want to harp on the refs too much because it's the refs. I want to talk more about the teams and the things that they can control. So I'm not going to focus on the refs too much. The refs were bad. Yes, Portland fans, you are right. The refs were bad, but they're not the reason why you lost this game. The reason they lost this game is because Mike Malone made a great adjustment. And even before that adjustment, the Nuggets were playing well, but the Blazers, it felt like the momentum was kind of shifting at the end of that half. Dame was hitting really tough threes, like step back threes from deep as hell, like Dame does. And then Michael Malone put Aaron Gordon on Dame and shut him out. They said, we're going to cut Dame off. Hey, you, the rest of the guys, beat us. And they couldn't, because they can't. This team doesn't have the defensive ability to stop Denver if they are going. Jokic, 38 points tonight. Michael Porter Jr. only had 18, but Campazzo, 12. Gordon, 13. Monte Morris, 12. 15 for Paul Millsap. I said last video, if the Nuggets got some other guys going, this series would shift very, very quickly. And it has. Because when these other guys on the Nuggets are performing, or they're like just hitting these open shots, the Blazers can't really keep up a lot of the time. Unless Dame is going off, they just can't keep up. And they can't get stops. So if the Nuggets get a lead and you can't get stops, it's pretty much done. If the Nuggets get a big lead, I don't see Portland coming back unless Dame has some crazy heroics, which he has definitely done in the past. But the way that Michael Malone made that adjustment shows why he's a good coach. Michael Malone made a key adjustment. He said, hey, Aaron Gordon, you have only been on the team for half a season, but I need you to go out and guard one of the best players in the entire NBA, and he's on fire, and go stop him. And Aaron Gordon said, okay, all right, fine, I'll do that, and I'll shut him down completely. That's exactly what he did. Because he told his player, I need you to do this, and he did that. And he made the decision to do that. Aaron Gordon didn't come up to Michael Malone and go, I want to guard Damian Lillard. Michael Malone said, you are going to guard Damian Lillard. And he said, all right, coach, I can do that. And he did it. A great job of it. He really shut Dame down that second half. He made life difficult for Dame. He didn't let him get those tough shots, or he didn't let him get those open shots, and every shot he took was tough. And Dame hits those tough shots, but you can only hit so many, especially when you had to put your team on your back in the first half. You're going to get tired eventually. So that's why Michael Malone's a good coach. We then flash over to the other side, where Terry Stotts is not a good coach. Terry Stotts has needed to be fired for a while. And especially when we look at probably one of his worst decisions of the game was letting Jusuf Nurkic continue playing with 5 fouls. First of all, he was playing with 4 fouls, which was kind of crazy already, because what you really need Jusuf Nurkic in this series for is to try and stop Jokic. You can't stop Jokic. You just can't. But he's a much better option than Enes Kanter. Nurkic is your best chance at stopping Jokic, so you need him in the game. And you know what happened? Nurkic got 5 fouls, and he was playing with 4 fouls when Jokic wasn't even in the game. You should have been matching Nurkic's minutes with Jokic's, especially with 4 fouls. If Nurkic has 4 fouls, sit him until Jokic comes back in. And then when he got that 5th foul, Terry Stotts took him out. No, he didn't. He didn't take Jusuf Nurkic out. Even though you need him to stop Jokic, and you know exactly what happened. Nurkic got a foul and fouled out on the literal next play. I said to myself, why is he not taking him out? He's going to foul out at some point. The Nuggets are going to attack him, and if he goes into the paint, they're just going to try and draw a foul, because if he goes out, it's now Enes Kanter guarding Jokic for the rest of the game, and he does not stand a chance. Not that Nurkic stands much of a chance either, but, it's better. Next play. Literal next play. He fouls out. And everyone... I tweeted this out. I've seen other people tweet out. I saw, Greg Anthony was talking about in the broadcast. He goes, why did Terry Stotts leave him in? He said that before the 6th foul even happened. He said, interesting decision from Terry Stotts, who kind of needs Nurkic to handle Jokic. Shout out to Greg Anthony. I thought he did a great job in today's game. And I was like, yeah, I don't know why he's doing that. And then the next play, he fouled out. Not a good coach. He's just not. In addition, there was not a good flagrant call. Like I said, the refs were not good in this game. I know Blazers fans are going to tell me how bad the refs were, because I tweeted out that the Blazers looked rattled, and people hopped on me saying, oh, it's the refs' fault. It's not the refs' fault. The refs are going to make bad calls. It's going to happen. But you as a team have to be able to say, hey, we got to chill out. We got to control what we can control, and we need to slow down and play. And after CJ McCollum got this really bad flagrant foul that was really just not a good flagrant foul call, the Blazers collapsed. And they were already down by a good bit, but they were hardly down. It was hardly down in terms of they weren't out of it. I think at that point they were down 13, 15 points or something like that. In the third quarter, you have so much time. You have Damian Lillard on your team. You have CJ McCollum. You have an offense that is really high powered sometimes, and you still have so much time. And what happened after that was Carmelo Anthony steps out on the baseline, turnover. Other turnovers happen as well, but that was one where I was like, oh, that's not good. And then you have a play where you don't get back in transition, and Monte Morris gets fouled, and you give him 2 free throws. And then you have another play where Monte Morris dishes the ball up to, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Shaquille. Yeah, it was Shaq Harrison. This was more towards the end of the game when it was a little more out of reach. But, it was still enough in reach where you still had a shot. And what happens is Shaq Harrison goes up for a wide open dunk, and CJ McCollum just smacks him. There was no foul that CJ McCollum could have made there to stop Shaq Harrison from scoring that dunk. It was just going to happen. And you kind of just have to let that go. But I think CJ McCollum and the Blazers were just so frustrated. CJ McCollum just said, I'm just going to go for it. I don't care anymore. And it's the job of the coach in the playoffs. It's also the player's job, of course, to chill out and not let emotions get too ahead of you. But it's the coach's job to call his teammates together in the huddle and say, hey, we are making these mistakes. Stop making these mistakes. Focus up. It's the playoffs. Bad calls are going to happen. We got to play as a team and we're going to be okay. And he didn't do that. He just didn't. The team kept playing like they were frustrated. They kept playing like they were like outmatched. Terry Stotts is not a good coach. I think today was a great example of why coaching matters in the NBA. Part of the reason why I picked the Nuggets in this series is because of the coaching. I don't think Terry Stotts is a very good coach. I don't think this Blazers roster is like, they're very talented, but you need a good coach to win in the playoffs. And while, yes, they still could win, I still think there is plenty of time. I think this is a series that probably will go like 7 games, at least 6 games. But this showed the ability of the Nuggets to jump on you and get you, partially because of coaching. And if Aaron Gordon plays Dame the rest of the series, life's gonna get tough for the Blazers because Aaron Gordon showed a lot of potential to stop Dame. I'm sure the Blazers will try and make some adjustments. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm not with Terry Stotts. So, Blazers fans, I get it. I also think Terry Stotts should be fired. And I think he will be after this year, especially if the Blazers lose in the first round. I don't think there's any chance Terry Stotts remains. This is way too talented of a team to have played to the level that they played tonight. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on the game. Yes, the refs were bad, I know, but the refs don't get you in a blowout and make those frustrated mistakes and make bad turnovers for you. You have to make those plays, and that's what the Blazers did tonight. So, yeah, Damian Lillard can't do it all. 42 minutes, 42 points. Guys who stepped up last game, like Carmelo Anthony especially, had 5 points, Cantor 4, Simons 3 from Covington in 37 minutes, 15 for Norman Powell, and no other stats. The Norman Powell Gary Trent move, that's gonna be an interesting one to talk about. I'm a huge fan of Gary Trent Jr., and was the Norman Powell Gary Trent Jr. move a good one, or is that lateral? I don't know. That's something to talk about, but thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you thought of the playoff games. Let me know what you thought of these, if you think right now of these 2 series. What are your takeaways? I appreciate you guys watching. This was longer than I meant to go for 2 games, but like I said, I had a lot to talk about, so I appreciate you guys watching. If you made it to this point in the video, say Terry Stotts needs to be fired in the comment section below. I will see you guys later. Real one, say it back.